I've been getting some comments on videos recently where people have been congratulating me on improving as a player based on the gameplay they're seeing in the background footage. Now, I'm not going to contradict my video from just yesterday where I talked about how if you compare footage of your gameplay from a year ago to how you play now, you're probably going to see a surprisingly major improvement. I'm sure there are plenty of things I'm doing better now compared to what you'd see from a younger me. But I don't think everyone who's making these comments is necessarily going back far enough in time for footage to compare. I think there's another factor that's influencing their perspective on this. As a competitive Smash player, I would always say it's not about how you place in the bracket, it's about who you beat. Tournament brackets, in particular elimination brackets, are designed to find who the best 3 to 8 players in a room are in as expedient a fashion as possible that's still enjoyable to play for as many people as possible, in a way that gives everyone at least a bit of competitive experience for having played. What they're not really designed to do as well is to accurately rank the players who fall more in the middle or back of the pack. Those players get removed from the tournament in few enough sets that there's only so much data available on that day to sort them. Good seeding does a lot of heavy lifting for getting them close to the right spot, but even if the TOs knew the important players and how to seed them, all sorts of things can still happen to throw those rankings off. For example, I recall a tournament where a friend of mine was supposed to play against Wobbles, at the time the best Ice Climbers player in the world. He placed second at EVO 2013. Nobody would have ever expected Wobbles to lose to my friend at that tournament, and he didn't, but he did drop out of the tournament. Since he was such a high seed, his side of the bracket became a pretty easy route into the later rounds of the tournament. My friend placed particularly high in that tournament, but nobody was going to consider that result too seriously in terms of how to rank them among the other players in the region. Why? Because even though their placement was high, they didn't beat anyone they weren't expected to beat already. If all you're doing is counting W's and L's, it was one of their best tournaments ever. But as I hope I've now demonstrated, that's no way to measure a player's skill level. It's not about how you place, it's about who you beat. I think a lot of people fail to consider that sometimes, some in more extreme ways than others, when looking at a Splatoon player's performance. An extreme example of this is the sort of comment that gets memed on a lot by competitive players and YouTubers. Neo Clash Blaster is a low tier? Then how did I get all the way to A rank with it? I got 18 kills with that weapon once, it's really good! Now look, if you're going 18-3 against like Jackpot or Alliance Rogue or something, that's a pretty convincing argument. But it's not about whether you can have a nice KA, it's about who you can get that nice KA against. When it comes to my background footage, there's a lot of variability in where I get it from. Most of it comes from solo queue, but some is from X-Rank, some is from Anarchy Series, and some is from Open. Maybe I liked one rotation over another. Maybe I wanted Open because I wanted lower stakes to try out a new weapon, or because it was late and I didn't feel confident I'd play my best. Maybe I needed to gain ground on my series ticket so I could be on pace to start the next season in X-Rank. X-Rank lobbies tend to be much more competitive than the ones you find in the Anarchy modes, and players tend to take series more seriously than Open due to the stakes being higher. On top of that, my power at the time determines a lot about the skill level of the opponents I get placed against. The video from yesterday came from an X-Power lobby, but a lobby where I was below 2000 X-Power. So, given the recent patch, I know that none of my opponents were above 2000. Unlike in footage from X-Battles where I'm over that threshold. You also don't know for sure how many matches I played before I found that one, or how I decided which part of a match to show off. Being the editor of the video means I'm perfectly capable of making every video a personal highlight reel if I really decide to do that. I'm sure I am getting better at the game over time. If what you're noticing is maybe that I'm making fewer movement mistakes, or aiming better, or choosing my fights better, you may well have a good point there. But also realize that I'm not necessarily playing opponents at the same skill level in every match. It's not as simple as, oh wow, Jem got a triple, he's gotten so much better. It'll take more complex thinking about the game than that if you want to evaluate my performance, or, much more importantly, and the reason I'm making this video in the first place, evaluate your own performances for the purpose of improving and reaching your goals.